Good afternoon, everyone. Time and joining us for today's webinar. Today's webinar topic, as you all know, is Basics of Research Paper Writing and Publishing. Publishing research results is an integral part of a researcher's professional life. However, writing is not everyone's favorite activity, and getting a paper published can be a very tedious and time-consuming process. Fortunately, many of the obstacles along the writing and publishing path can be avoided by following some simple guidelines and practices. We are aiming to provide early stage researchers with a handy introduction to essential issues, and we sincerely hope this webinar might help you get there. On behalf of our college, I, Jada, extend a very warm welcome to our faculty members, students, and all my friends present here into this webinar. And also to everyone who are attending our event from outside our college, I welcome you wholeheartedly. So just a few little things before we get started. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the chat box. I'll bring them up during the presentation and we will also have time for questions at the end. And please do tell for those who are not able to join the meet that there's a live streaming going on YouTube. The link will be provided in the chat box so that you can share it with your friends. There too you can interact with us by asking questions in the chat. Now, opportunity to introduce our speaker to the event. 12 years of teaching and research experience and is now currently working as an associate professor in the Department of ECE in our college, IESAT. Speaking of her academic background, she completed BTech from the College of Engineering, Pune and MTech from Welltech Engineering College. It's not over yet. She did her MBA in Educational Management from Madras University and PhD from Anna University, Chennai. As this is a little get-to-know part of our speaker, I should also tell you all that she published 16 international conference papers and 9 international journals and is also a reviewer in 6 SCI indexed journals, which only makes her the suitable guest of our event. So everyone, join me please for welcoming our guest, Dr. Neenu Joseph. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Jada. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
My slide is visible to you? Hello.
Yes, ma'am. Come.
Okay, thank you. First of all, I thank Department of EACE AISAT this wonderful opportunity. I am going to discuss about the basics of research paper writing and publishing. I am going to discuss here about research, types of research article for writing a good research paper, structure of research paper, and finally tips for writing a good research article. If you knew what we were doing in research, would it? A famous word by Albert Einstein. Study from research. You all know about research. Research is all about addressing an issue or asking and answering a question or solving a problem. So, identify an issue, question, or problem. Talk with people who want or need your study. What's already known about it? Experts and all. Read their reviews and the original research on the topic. Plan, post, and do your study accordingly. Write it and submit it for assessment. Better still, do a good job on it for publication. Detail on this. There are 6 phases of research. Problem definition. First of all, we have to identify a problem statement. Then, next procedure, we have to identify the literature or conventional system existing around this or related to your chosen area. That is called a literature survey or literature review. Selection of research design, subjects and data collection techniques. How to find out how to collect the data for your problem statement, how to design your problem, and the subject detail on the subject related to your research. And the fourth step is data gathering. Data gathering means we have to collect data for doing our research. And the fifth one is data processing and analysis. Data and analysis it and find out the results. Implication, conclusion and recommendations. We have to conclude and prove that our research work is best compared with the existing results. And finally, we have to publish the paper. We are going to look on the types of research paper and what are the types of papers that can be published. First of all, a conference paper. Second, a journal. A journal can be a review paper, a full-length paper, or analytical paper. Short communication paper. And finally, it can be a patent. Detail on this. Conference proceedings is a place where eminent researchers are physically discuss and present their research specific to their field. Researchers submit their papers to a conference according to specific guidelines and timeline specified by particular conferences. It's then sent to reviewers. After their review, the result is communicated to the researcher. Hence, the authors are called for the presentation. The conference papers are mostly short since they usually have a limit on the number of pages. Are usually published in collections called proceedings. There are a lot of conferences taking place around the world for different fields. A conference paper is a part of our research. This is not a full research work. Journal. A journal is a publication that is printed periodically with credible papers. Impact factor of journal helps in measuring the citation of the paper of the journal. The frequency of issue of journal varies from every journal. They have flexible page limit and are expected to be a lot more detailed than a conference paper. Of journal, but with different image, is a university journal which is a publication of a particular university. A journal paper and a conference paper. Clear that a conference paper is a part of a research work, but a journal paper must be a completed work. And coming to patent, a patent is a form of intellectual property. It provides the owner the right to exclude anyone from making, using, selling and importing the patent idea for a limited period, usually 20 years. For example, if a patent has been granted by the US Patent and Trademark Office or USPTO, the patent holder will have legal protection to own, produce, sell, use product for 20 years. This idea of creating patents was developed so that people pursue their innovative ideas. There are various types of patents are available like software patents, electrical engineering patents, mechanical patents, design patents, etc. Into writing a research article. First of all, you think about your work. Some questions to yourself. Is it what to publish? And the questions, what's in the literature? So what? It's a lot of work. Don't do it unless it's worth it. First of all, we have to decide the problem statement. According to our problem statement, it's a survey. Apart from the literature survey, we have to add to our idea. What is the difference from, or what new idea or what novelty will it be? Maybe if it is a conclusion of all the literature survey, don't waste time and no need to publish it. Is there any novelty in your work in a good journal paper? And these are the answers you have to say. A single question clearly stated with adequate evidence for the answer. Try stating the question and its answer in one simple sentence. Is it one or more papers? If our research paper is having a large volume, we can split into main parts and publish 2 or 3 papers. Putting too much in one paper makes it diffuse and less compelling than if it's focused in your centralized area. Then coming to aspects of writing a paper. The main aspects are content. Content must be short and sweet. It can be understandable to everybody. Think about who are the audience to your paper and then prepare the content of paper. Language is a very important thing in writing a research paper. Next one is the figures and table. The figures and table must tell your what is your research. What is your research analysis? The one figure is better than you write thousands of words in sentence. More figures and tables to represent your research. Next, literature. In writing a paper, introduction part, it can be included a part of your literature survey. Choosing a journal. Choosing a journal is very important. By our subject area, if the scope of a journal meets our subject area, we can choose appropriate journal and prepare the first draft. The first draft means your paper, first draft of your research article. Then check it clearly. If needs, you can meet your colleagues, your friends, and ask suggestion for your research paper. To that suggestion, you can rewrite or recorrect the paper. Finally, the draft can be submitted to your guide or supervisor and get suggestion from supervisor. Okay, so you want to paper. Next question. What is the right format for the message? Yes, it can be original article, a review article, a conference paper. What is the difference between these? If we submit complete our research work overview, the paper will be a original article or a full-length paper. If a starting stage, the literatures are over and we identify our technique and comparison is done between the literature and our research, it can be a review paper. And if we complete some of the research work for a conference publish, next, what is the right audience? Who cares? For example, if you've done a research in wireless sensor method, your audience will be to do research in the area networks. Subject for studying this subject will be the audience, and apart from this, your reviewer is also an audience. Right for them. Finally, what journal should I choose? As I said, what research area, our topic, our problem, we can journal and scope of journal. For selecting a journal. This topic of my paper within its scope and format. First of all, you have to identify the scope, aim and scope of a journal. Enter into a journal site, for example, Springer. If we enter into the particular Springer journal site, example, RIT Journal of Science and Technology is an example. Say SCA Index Journal. So the first thing you have to see the aim and scope. Read it out clearly and think about your paper. If this scope is matched with your paper. The second thing is it matched my audience, as I said, your audience need. Your paper is matched with audience. Name the your researches appropriateness. You can get suggestion from others, other research scholars, other senior staffs, senior professors. You can ask. Factor. Impact factor of the journal. And last, consequence of wrong decision. If your paper area and scope does not match, they will reject the paper. Time lost, failure to publish. Then you have to try for another journal paper. So, before going to publish a paper, check your scope and area, whether it is matched or not. Then, I mentioned impact factor. How to calculate the impact factor of a journal. As an example, if A is the total sites in 2015, B is 2015 sites to article published in 2013 to 14. That is, B is a subset of A. Number of articles published in 2013 to 14. Then impact factor will be D by C. That is the impact factor of 2015. Every year it will be changed. On to literature search. In can and what can you say that's not. Be thorough in your search. A high sensitivity, low specificity research. if we are going to buy a mobile phone or a laptop. What and all things you have to search? It's available, what are the memory capacity and the cost, things. It's called a literature supply. Likewise, if we fix a first you have to do the literature. You can search through internet, through books. Anywhere you can search and collect more data related to the topic and find out a conclusion from the literature. What are the disadvantages or any new thing can we do? It's a research literature survey and find a new idea, a novel idea through our own research. Process of paper writing. Read an outline first. Where an outline. Contents should be included in paper. Right. And then plan on multiple drafts. Then again recheck, rewrite, then again check, rewrite. Then come to a final draft. Or figures error from more analysis. Is important result analysis part as well as the design part. Fix a deadline for your paper writing. Next is the suggestions for writing a good research paper. Your audience and write for the specific audience. Some of the points are the scientific and technical writing is never a general purpose, but written for a specific audience. That is the community who read a particular journal or study a particular subject. The style and level of writing that is appropriate for your audience, as they are multi-subject of highly regarded papers and default authors for key journals. Journal for authors is mandatory. First of all, you think about it, prepare the paper accordingly. The supervisor or professor is not here to teach you basic grammar and spelling. But for mastering the basic of with word processes and spell checklists, standard writing tools, typos, or other spelling errors should be regularized. You must take care about your language. Paper many times. If there is grammatical error or spelling error, the paper will be rejected. As you all know, nowadays there are a lot of softwares and applications are available. Check us in online anywhere, or you can with the English teacher or senior professor. Then only you can go. Do not turn. Most people first drafts are terrible rewriting, and you should make a serious rewriting and fine tuning. Commands to anyone else to read. Cannot think the first draft will be the final one. Check, then Avoid abusive word forms. Use words in the form that conveys their meaning as clearly and simply as possible. For example, the low rate of encounters was a reflection of population density reductions versus the low rate of encounters reflects a reduced population. Which one is better? Like this, in your paper, you have to implement this type of sentence. Can include simple sentence. Do not use more words where fewer will do. Do not use long words where short ones will do. For example, versus use. In order to versus do. Do not use special words to make your writing seem more technical, scientific, or academic when the message is more clearly presented otherwise. Use an outline to organize your ideas and writing. When you first start a writing project, make an outline of the major headings. List the key ideas to be covered under each heading. The three tasks of first figuring out what you want to say and logic of your arguments and crafting the exact language in which you will express your ideas. Let's think about the structure of paragraphs. A paragraph should begin with a topic sentence that sets for what we make topic sentence short and direct. From the ideas introduced in your topic sentence, follow evidence. The paper should be follow a logical sequence. According to that, what and all paragraphs should be included in and what and all headings should be included. Pay attention to, as I said earlier, the English writing is very likewise, the tenses also. Even of or inconsistent tenses are common in student writing. Or others did in the past gets example collected. Events or objects that continue to happen or exist can be described in the present tense. I examine this example. You choose be consistent. Caption should not merely name a table or figure. They should explain how to read it. A caption should contain sufficient information so that a reader can understand a table or figure in most cases without reference to the text. The reviewer or a reader will read your paper and they go through the figures or tables. They can be able to understand what do you mean in this paper, what the result you get from this. When citing a reference, focus on the ideas, not the authors. And who reported a result is an important point in a statement. Literature citation should be analytical about wording of the sentence. Write about your results, not your tables, figures, and statistics. When preparing to write your results, decide on the elements of the story. Subset of the text. Figures and tables that most effectively and concisely conveys your message. This subset of tables and figures in a logical sequence. Then write your story around them. Develop a strategy for your discussion. In some cases, the results and discussion is come under same heading. Begin a discussion with a short restatement of the most important points from your results. Meant to set up that idea on interpreting your results and relating them to the literature. Introductions and conclusions will need substantial modification by the time you have finished the rest of the paper. Concerns apply to conclusion, abstracts, and summaries. It explains what are the objects you are going to do and some important literatures of that you have done. Next, break up large projects into small pieces and work on these pieces. Analysis for any given paper is often an iterative process. Writing the results section of a paper is often the best way to discover the analysis and figures that still need to be done. Considering a research is consisting of a large volume, you can 2 or 3 pieces and then publish in a different, if it is worth enough to publish, you can publish it in a 2 or 3 research papers. Flow and resonate. Papers written so well that they flow and resonate are much more likely to influence your readers than the equivalent message presented in a form that is merely clear. Take editorial comments seriously. It may be clear from an editor comments that they did not understand the point you were making. If so, that is clear indication that you need to improve your writing. Also, an editor, no matter, has invested their time to help improve the quality of your writing. Respect their investment. Maybe your research ideas can understand by the reader. That's why the paper should be clear and specific. And it should be meet the scope of the research journal. Then only the reviewer will. Then basic steps of writing. First of all, the research area. It's a problem statement and find a relevant topic related to that area. The research area will be vast. Think about artificial intelligence. It's a very vast area. Find a topic, concise topic you have to select. Then do the literature survey. How to do the literature survey said. Hypothesis, your design, how to design the topic, how to implement it. Survey outline of your paper, thoughts, write down your first draft, then revise your draft many times, and finally make the final draft. And come to the structure of a research paper. According to your research article, always remember the following points as you write. The clarity, simplicity, and accuracy. Clarity defines terms, relevant information. Simplicity, keep sentence structures simple and direct. Represent all data and instructions accurately. Papers are organized into specific sections. In a research paper, as will be explained in detail, the title section clearly describes contents, authors, affiliation of included in title. With the title, abstracts describe what was done. Then come to keyword, ensures the article is correctly identified in abstracting and indexing services. Introduction, explain the problem and your objective. Explains how the data were collected. Result describes what was discovered. Discuss the implication of the findings. An acknowledgement ensures those who helped in research are recognized. Reference ensures previously published work is recognized. And finally, appendix. General organization of the paper is title, abstract, introduction, methods, results. It may be results and then come to discussion or conclusion part, acknowledgement, reference. Title on it. Title. The title is the most important part of a research paper. The title should be clear and interesting, otherwise the reader does not continue reading. Authors' names and affiliations are on the title page. The title can be of two types: indicative titles and informative titles. Titles indicate the subject matter of a paper but give no indication of any results obtained or conclusions drawn. Informative titles give an indication of results achieved and conclusions drawn as well as the subject matter of the paper. For indicative title, the effectiveness of bed nets in conduct at the front of the year, and same title in informative one, but when here the mentioned as right, then second one. Abstract is a mini paper. The abstract introduction usually commences of your paper. This is the longest part and results. One or two sentences in about the results. Question is limited to concluding statement. For a good research paper, the abstract will be 150 words to 350 words. For a conference as well as a journal paper. It's a summary of your research. It as important as the title. Keep the sentence short and focused. Warnings and citations, and also short forms. Into the abstract. If a reader is taking a paper, go through the abstract. And second part is the conclusion part. So the abstract and according to a research, very important part. Come to the introduction part. In introduction, we found the technology, include background information on the subject and your objectives here. We found the literature survey. The introduction part will be for the technology, which area, if you use machine learning, one or two about machine learning. Go for the objectives. What kind of objectives are included in your research? You can detail on it. Then you can include your literature survey. The literature survey, the most important five paper for 5 literature survey, most important findings you can include it in your introduction part. Then coming to the methods. Describes the materials used and included the names. For considering the physics or chemistry paper used or civil engineering papers, the materials used are very important. That can be included in the fourth part. Legal side, engineering, electrical engineering, advanced engineering, or computer science engineering. The design methods, block diagrams, and workflow can be included. The key answers, the method so that it can be replicated. Criteria for inclusion and exclusion in the study and statistical analysis should be included. Subheadings. Sometimes experimental details are given as supplementary part. You can include subheadings under the title introduction. Methods. A design flow. It can be a design method or a workflow. Result and discussion. Findings here. Even when your results prove your hypothesis. First you decide your hypothesis. If the result met, you can prove here. Organize around tables or figures. Present tabular result selectively in text. Interpretation, just the facts. Discuss what your result means in the section. The graph is shown here. The percentage of fellow with papers published before talk and after talk. Coming to conclusion side, one more thing, that the literature survey. How it is improved, how you improve your literature survey. It can be included here. A comparison graph is shown, it will be better. Conclusion. In this section, you are free to explain name or why they differ from what other workers have found. Interpret your results in light of other published results by adding additional information from sources you cited in the introduction, as well as by introducing new sources. Make sure that you provide accurate citations. Question back to the objectives and questions you raised in the introduction. 2. Do not simply restate the objectives. Make state size all the evidence. Include or future scope of the top. Then limitations and acknowledgement. You can include a limitation that your limitations of your research work is needed, you can state here. Next, acknowledgement. If some projects are funded projects, then acknowledgement to the funded agency, or some of the projects are funded by the management of your institution, then you can acknowledge your management. The reference bar in the text must have a corresponding reference lines for the format protocol, different for different journals or conferences. The reference format will be given in every journal site. According to the format only we can arrange this. In numbering, the reference can be minimum F15 for a and come to journal to 25 papers, then coming to tables, the tables and figures appear at the end of your paper or in a separate file. In the case of journal paper, papers or conference papers, it will be included in the text also. Or legends, description, maybe some, in case of some journals, define an abbreviation in each table and figure. The tense of person when writing a research paper, when quoting previously published work, refer to it in tenses step. Before a journal paper, you should go through the paper thoroughly, or you can to your friends or other researchers for proofreading. Are 10 consistently throughout. Do numbers in abstract match text and tables? Consider the table you mentioned in your paper and in text you written as 3.2. It will be an error. So thoroughly go through the paper and check finally the table number and figure number is matches. Those citations in the text match reference. Cited reference in our paper. If the reference is 1, then cited as 2, it will be a mistake. So finally we check that the citation and reference will match properly. Are syntax and grammar acceptable? Finally you check your grammar and syntax of your writing. Result. You have heard about the word plagiarism. What do you mean by plagiarism? The practice of taking someone else's work or ideas and passing them off as one's own with or without. Plagiarism can be intentional or unintentional. You should avoid plagiarism because you aspire to produce work of the highest quality. Every journal edited your plagiarism of your paper. First of all, you have to check the plagiarism. Plagiarism is important. If you use some sentence from other paper, it will show as plagiarism. The plagiarism checking softwares are available online. Some examples are Grammarly, ProWriting A, plagiarism checker, Google checker, plagiarismcheck.org. Some of them are free and some of them will. Some of the softwares will do according as they are collecting some amount. Finally, tips to follow search article. Focus on a central contribution. You have to focus on a particular problem. Finally, you go through your paper, you check it out, the design writing flow is matching with the every sentence. It should be centralized. Then write for those who do not know research. According to the research work, the work is particular for your work. What is your work? And you write for the person who do not know this work. Content conclusion approach. Avoids information and use parallel structure. Summarize your research in the abstract. As I said earlier, explain the importance of your research in the introduction part. Results in a logical sequence and support them with figures and tables. Discuss any data gaps and limitations. Allocate your time for the most important section. This means you have to concentrate. Result analysis is a very important part of a research paper, and the comparison results is very important. Get feedback from colleagues. You can ask feedback from your friends, colleagues, your faculty members. Then, according to that feedback, you correct it and submit the paper. The qualities of a good scientific paper is focused on the specific questions, abstract and tables and figures, without reading all of them. As I said earlier, the abstract is very important. Go through while reading a paper. First, go through the abstract, then or you can understand what is meant, what is the technology, or what is the methods used in this research, and what will be the result. Writing is an activity. Like this. Find in the method section is your aim. If you use arrows, don't use acronyms in the arrows, a flower, etc. Nonsense. Check before submission that you read. Number the text pages consecutively, beginning with the first or title page. Number your tables consecutively in the order in which you want them to appear. Read the title and headings of each table objectively to determine whether the table can be understood without reference to the text. The text for references to table, certain that each table is referred to and that each of the references is to the appropriate table. Examine your text tables and legends to make certain that each reference cited is accurately represented in the reference list. Examine your reference list to make certain that each work listed there is accurately referred tables or legends. Review the special requirements of the journal to which you are submitting the manuscript and make certain that you have met them. Carefully read your final typescript at least twice the second time, preferably check the plagiarism. Going for the article submission, first of all, select your journal carefully. As I said earlier, the scope of the journal must be made with the research area must be made with the scope of the journal. The scope of the journal properly, then only we can understand what they are expecting. Think about your target audience and the level of your work. Do you have a realistic chance of being accepted? Write your paper to your specified audience. Follow the guidelines in the notes or authors and include everything they ask. It makes the editor's job easier. For writing every research article or every journal, they are getting a specific format. According to that format only, you have to submit the paper. Articles should not be submitted to more than one journal at a time. If you have prepared a paper, write the paper to one journal at a time. In some cases, the papers with different titles, some people are submitting to different journals. One thing you remember that maybe the reviewer is same for that journals. This is not good for a paper publication. The peer review process in a journal and a conference. Enter your paper, then they reply the confirmation of receipt. Then initial decision by editor. The editor will check the plagiarism, the English writing, and the format of your paper. They have given some specific format. The editor will check the format also. If anything, and also the scope of the journal. If points may be missed in your paper, there is chance of rejection of your article. And then if you decide to review, then the editor assign some reviewers your paper. Reviewers accept invite. If the reviewer is ready to review the paper, the corresponding reviewers, and they can be like revise and accept. If it is a revised decision, notification and resubmit it. Then, after the revision, if they are satisfied with the revised paper, then there is a possibility to accept, otherwise again the paper will reject. Then finally the paper is published for publication. In the case of this is for journal paper, and in the case of a conference paper submitted, then they specifically tell the format of the paper. According to the format, you have to submit a paper. Then they will assign one or two reviewers to the paper. Then they will decide it will accept or reject. If accept, then they call for the paper presentation, and finally it's published in conference proceedings or subjournals. Getting the reviewers of your paper. The reviewer is always right. You have to think like this, whether they are not. Don't respond quickly. Digest reviewers. The responding to the editor or a reviewer part is that there is 4 possibilities: acceptance without any revision. Second one is minor revisions are requested, major revisions, rejection. You need take no further action until the proofs reach you, except write a note thanking the editor. Requested. If some suggestions or some doubts they can ask from the reviewer side, by the doubts and suggestions, there is a chance. It's 99% chance is to accept it. Major revision, there is a major. You will have to think hard if the effort is worthwhile. You may eventually decide that the paper is better as it is and proceed to try another editor in the hope or some part may be included, some more research findings may be included. If they will accept the revision, it's a less chance to accept the paper taken. And finally, the rejection. Maybe the scope is not met with your research area, or other the novelty is less in your paper, then there is a chance of rejection. If your paper was rejected, was it sent out for review? If not, consider changing type of journal. The editor, there is a chance of rejection from the editor side. Then we can go for another journal. If a reviewer don't suggest changes, send it out quickly to another journal. Summarizing, before that I will show you some examples of the paper. The big conference paper with the contents. This is the title and author affiliation. Then abstract, keywords, introduction part, the methods they are split into types, principles of composite nanomaterials, and then the second part, then this one is the third part, and finally the measurements. This is the results. They are expressing through this graph, and finally the discussion, or it can be conclusion. Both are same. And then acknowledgement. They acknowledge the supported by RSF grant. Then finally the reference part. This is a conference paper, and for the journal paper this is a review paper. Review article, the role of artificial intelligence in medical image research. This is the author information, And coming to abstract, that is, it's a review paper, the history, and the current research is going on in different areas. And finally, they written the challenges, and they got the literatures and the feature of AI. Here you have to mention your work and the comparison from the existing work. And finally, and then reference. Example for a review article. And summarizing, writing a research paper. General points: give yourself enough time to work. Remember that writing is a process. A good paper doesn't come out perfect first time for everyone. Even the best scientists have to struggle to organize their papers, and everyone, including you, needs to go through several revisions before they reach the final product. The writing reflects the quality of the research. Use clear, direct prose. Make every word count. Don't use extra words or excessively long words when shorter one will. Write as you would speak. Find a good paper from a respected journal and use it as a model for your writing. Start with an outline of the paper, sketching out what's going to go in the introduction, etc. Use subtopics and subject sentences to begin. Then write a rough draft, the ideas, and fleshes out your topic sentence into paragraphs in rough form. Use the active voice when possible. Trend in scientific publishing towards writing. I measured 50 ml rather than 50 ml was measured. Active voice is usually less wording and wording. Once you have finished with your rough draft, take a break before reading your paper to fiddle with the details. Let a friend or colleague read your draft. Please write your second draft. Spell check and check the grammar carefully. Make sure the ideas are outlined clearly and flow logically within the text. Finally, publish your paper. For taking a reference to publish your paper, you can select conferences from the first three websites like conferencealerts.com, worldconferencealerts.com, allconferencealerts.com. They are advertised the all conferences happen in and around the world. You can select a conference from this website, and specifically for IEEE conferences, you can go to IEEE.org/conferences. Very good journals like Springer.com, Elsewhere.com, Science Direct, IEEE.org/journals, and concluding, you can search in Thomson Reuters. SCA indexed and Scopus indexed journals list. Now, any queries? You can ask. If you have any queries, you can ask directly or type chats.